Good afternoon. Welcome to Data Center Strategic Singapore 2009. I'm very honored to have with me Mr. Martin Slater, who's the Director of Infrastructure for PTS Consulting here in Singapore. He spoke today on one of our sessions about integration of IT and facilities. Is it a forward or a backward step? Which is an interesting concept, Mr. Slater. If you wouldn't mind, could you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, sure. What we've seen in the past is that before the economic crash that's recently occurred is that IT literally had a spending budget that was excessive and it could be almost unaccountable for, which meant that the amount of IT boxes they bought were quite large in number, but at the same time the space in which they went into, the DC space, was equally expansive or would continue to expand for a number of DCs. I think we've seen now, because of the economic collapse that's recently occurred and the slow emergence out of it, we're going to see a step change. We are already seeing that step change. IT departments don't have the spending budgets they used to have. They're more accountable than they used to be. And on the same side of it, you've got the corporate real estate who are now charged with achieving more energy efficiency targets than they used to be, with green credentials attached. Typically in the past you may have IT that has set the power requirements, and that could have been anything ranging from 3-6 kilowatts a rack, which we can say is almost arbitrary in fashion, and it's never really been consolidated. The model in the past was Crest would take that figure and deal with that figure, not being accountable for that figure in one way as well. Now, because of the energy efficiency targets imposed upon the corporate real estate side, and also the spending limits put down to the IT departments, we're going to see a greater amalgamation between them, or we should do. Because to achieve both sides of it, you can only do it by talking. Rather than being too siloed, which they've tended to be in the past, they've now got to be a joined up, co-joined unit.
And we hear all the buzzwords repeatedly about green initiatives and stewardship and all of those things. Have you seen the mindset change locally and or globally now because of the step down in finance and the CapEx and OpEx budgets being halved, if not quartered?
I think it's a funny thing to say because I got affected by the global economic crash, but I think it's focused people's minds more by actually saving in terms of reduction of energy, because it's now what they may be forced to do, automatically means that they're actually achieving greener ambitions. So therefore, their overall carbon footprints are reduced. They're virtualizing. Before they tended to talk about it but never really achieved it. Now they're paying due homage to actually achieving virtualization. We hear of consolidation as well, so CIOs aren't prepared to actually pay out vast millions of dollars in terms of new DC space. He's saying, I want more with less, so therefore be more accountable. Reduce your space, consolidate it, you probably don't need it, and at the same time give me a saving that I can show to my board members at the end of the year. So in that way, your carbon footprint is certainly being reduced. They are considering sustainable aspects. Certainly if they're looking at outsourcing to DC providers, part of our RFI and RFP processes are going to be on basis of energy efficiency and what policies do you have in place. So there will be more. I think over the next 2 years we're going to see, it's not going to be a reduction, it's certainly going to be an increase.
Did you feel that today in your conference session when you spoke, was the message well received? Is it a message that the IT community here in Singapore has already been given? Or are they all at a point where they know they have to come on board and move forward and be good stewards?
I think it's a certain amount of reluctance. It's a case of being forced into a situation. Because if things hadn't changed, they'd have probably carried on in exactly the same fashion that they would have before. And I think the way the market is, the way that governance has now pushed them into a certain direction. If you look at the big financial institutes, they've lost billions of dollars. Gone are the big heady days of the big budgets and the big expenditure. Everybody has to be understanding exactly where the next dollar goes. We know, for instance, that big investment banks might spend billions of dollars every year on IT equipment. virtualization, consolidation, they can halve those costs. They're real tangible figures now to banks and organizations. And those who aren't with the game yet soon will have to get with it.
So in essence, the end will ultimately justify the means, and large corporations that have seen a massive reduction in their expenditures and their capital will look to people like PTS Consultancy to come in and give them the best path forward.
I would hope so. Most of the time, or some of the time, they can do these exercises inside. But again, I think where we can add value is we've got knowledge throughout the industry, we've got knowledge across the sectors, and it's not focused with one individual organization. So using us as a benchmarking or peer reviewing to see if they're going in the right direction, I think would probably be for them a good investment to make sure that they're getting best bang for their buck.
And again, adds value to the overall goal.
Gives them credibility as well.
With the audience that you had today, did you see a broad mix of both management and or data center operators, or was it more just IT managers themselves?
No, when the questions were thrown to the audience at the end, there was a clear, distinct number of different individuals there from IT, obviously, and also from the more facilities, the people who run the systems. So I think there was a fair mix.
Okay, great. Well, it sounds like PTS Consultancy obviously has a foot in the door and is going to be one of the leaders in moving data centers forward and reducing some of those overall costs. With that, I would certainly like to thank you for being here to answer some of our questions. I'm sure the audience and the viewers out there will get a chance to view this, and if they have questions, they'll probably get a hold of you too.
Hope so.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Have a great afternoon.
Thank you very much, Aaron.